Today on the Unlocking Your Book podcast, fear, shame, and guilt. Those are the three giants that I've had to learn how to overcome in my journey towards my destiny. There's a giant, and I used the story of David and Goliath in this book, The Giant Slayers. But I thought about just take you through a little of that process of how that, from a seed, how did that become a tree that now has become a forest. Be sure to get our mini workshop that unlocks you and your book. We have even included a 2-part session to write your first book chapter with our team so that you can get your message out to the people that need to hear it. Get immediate access to it all at unlockingyourbook.com. Sometimes we have these words spoken over us. So I kind of smiled. I think it was 16 years ago, my first book was published. But when my first book in Norwegian got translated into Norwegian, I thought about giving that to my writing teacher and just saying that maybe you were not the correct prophet after all. But I just thought about at least sharing some of my stories. I have had the honor of writing 12 books over the last 16 years and also translated into about 20 different languages if you're putting a few of them together. I do not see myself primary as a writer. But what I realized that is so important is some of the legacy, even while I'm sitting here with you today, I'm hearing stories and testimonies of people that is actually reading some of that writing. I got it from Brazil. I get it from Mandarin in China, different parts of the world. So as I took some loaves and fishes, something that God had given me, fed the multitudes. Who are the ones you're going to feed with the message that God has given? Now, the byproduct is some of the baskets left over that I get, the blessings and the benefits that is the byproduct of it. So I'm just putting that into perspective. That I think each one of my books came out of, it's often comes in a seed format, and it just can come in a thought or an idea. And I thought about just sharing a few basic things that was very helpful for me. And it's part of my life message. Actually, I wrote a whole book connected to 4 primary questions. Question number 1, who are you? And it all comes out of identity, identity, identity. Who are you? So you are not an orphan doing something for God. You are actually a beloved son, or a beloved daughter doing it from God. So instead of something I just need to achieve, it becomes something I get to receive. So it comes from him and it goes through him and back to him. So this became so important for me, is just to shift this thing in from something I feel I have to do, instead of an invitation of something I get to do with the Father, with the Son, and with the Holy Spirit. So identity. Second, I think that everything that I'm doing is out of intimacy. It is out of relationship. And this has been so important because for any one of us, when we're going to do a book, you feel alone at time periods. And at that moment, it's so important that everything that we do is from him, not just for him. And it is out of an intimacy, out of a relationship that I have with him. So who are you? Identity. Where are you? Where are you right now in your process? The intimacy. And this has been so important for me, just being connected to him. Third, what do you have? Meaning, what is it that Jesus has paid for already? I call it inheritance. Meaning everything that Jesus paid for is available, including wisdom, including endurance, including joy. Anything that I need, I realize that it is an inheritance, not living just towards inheritance, but from inheritance. So this is just a little framework that I use as a foundation. Identity, knowing who I am. Intimacy, knowing where I am. Inheritance, everything that Jesus paid for. And I can look into everything I do not have, instead of looking at his hands and his side and seeing what he provided for and what is available through him. And then the 4th question then is a destiny question. What are you called to do? What is your special sauce? What is your uniqueness? And this became kind of a foundation of who are you? Identity. Where are you? Intimacy. What do you have? Inheritance. And what are you called to do? Destiny. What is your uniqueness? Your special sauce? And I thought about just sharing one of the book projects. It's probably one of the last one I wrote called The Giant Slayers, and maybe some of you have read it. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of the background, because I believe that any one of you, both as an author and as a writer, there's a certain giant that you are called to solve. There could be some of the questions that is out there that you are helping to provide the answer. And I wanted also to put into perspective that God uses all things out for good. You do not always just have to have your success story. Like my best-selling book was healing, and it's still healing the orphan spirit and healing the orphan heart. And this came for so long. I lived with an orphan heart, orphan spirit. And as a result of that, the pain and the processes I had, I actually made that available, because I realized that it's not just me struggling with that. So when Jesus says in John 14:18, I will not leave you as an orphan, I will come to you. And so suddenly the change in my own life and my own transformation, where he took out the orphan heart, gave that spirit of sonship or daughtership, where you say, Abba, Father, to be able to do. All I do is what I see my father do. I say what I hear my father say. That shift and change came out of crisis moments that I had in my life. The giant slayers was another one of those. I've had three primary giants inside my life. I'm talking about the internal giants in my life: fear, shame, and guilt. Those are the three giants that I've had to learn how to overcome in my journey towards my destiny. And then there are some giants that I've solved on the outside. So there are certain giants that we face in life. There's giants standing on the doorway towards your destiny. There's a giant, and I used the story of David and Goliath in this book, The Giant Slayers. But I thought about just take you through the little of that process of how that, from a seed, how did that become a tree that now has become a forest? Because there's often a process. And what I've seen with almost every one of my book projects, I wanted to abort it. 8-9 months pregnant with something that God had given me. And then you come to the last few moments when you're pregnant with something God is giving, and it seems like it's going to die. You're not going to be able to do it. So the last few moments, I call it the last few centimeters before there is birth, before the water breaks, and before that idea that God gave you, that word that God gave you, the prophecy that God gave you, or that picture that God gave you, the journey. And sometimes you've been pregnant, like one of my books took 3 years longer than it was expected, but the gestation was long, but also the size of the baby was much bigger when it was born. So God wastes nothing. He uses all things out for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So don't see that as a waste. It's like you've been pushing a rock and you think that nothing has happened, but something is happening to you. There's certain muscles you're building, there's certain endurance, there's things that happens to you even at those moments. So I just encourage you that on the journey towards your destiny, as you're feeling the little baby, little push, big baby, big push. And if you're going through a little bit longer gestation period before you're birthing this, but then also get the wisdom of how to raise that baby. That's after publishing, after the book is out, and then to eventually making sure you take time to raise that into maturity, and who's going to help you to steward that. So on the Giant Slayers book, I was doing an event with Dr. Randy Clark. I'm actually right now, I'm on a Zoom, so I'm just kind of clicked out that one and go back to the next one. But Randy Clark, I was doing a question and an answering time. And they would say, how did you reach 1 million Muslims? Or how did you? And they asked me all those different questions. And the first thing that came out of me, I showed up. And so the question then comes in, what are some areas in your life that, because this book will never be a reality for you if you don't show up, if you do not start somewhere. And I know the first step that you're taking, you're here. You're taking the time. You wanted to learn from other people. You don't have to have the same scars that some of us had. There's certain things here that you have, and you can receive impartation. So I'm putting that in, and that was the first chapter of my book, Giant Slayers. I showed up, and I'm looking at what are some areas that I need to show up right now. And then also some areas where I did not show up. And as a result, I was not able to solve some of those problems. I was not able to overwin or overcome some of those giants. The second chapter of this book became part of the question and answering time. I showed up for the right battle. That became chapter 2. So again, what are some of the wrong battles? What are some of the gainers in your life and drainers in your life? You have to be aware of that even in regard to your energy. And there's a certain moments for me where I'm realizing that I starts to burn oil when I'm staying within my lane, meaning I'm staying within what God has called me to do. But sometimes what happens is I get distracted. I'm moving outside that, and before you know it, I no longer smell like oil. I start to smell flesh. And you can ask my wife, it doesn't smell the same way. So my challenge was just these practical things. What is my lane? What is my calling? So these practical steps, they were just asking me question as they were watching one of my videos. And on that video, they saw about 30,000 people healed and 80,000 Muslims saved in this one video. And the students started to ask questions at this event. And the whole byproduct was, I came up with a whole book out of it because I realized, wow, they said these 12 answers I gave to those question and answer changed their life. So I could smell that, wow, what are some of the giants that they are facing? What are some of the giants you have in your life, internal giants that you need to overcome? Is it fear of failure? What if I don't get it published? What if, and we have all these what if. What if I step out of the boat and walk on water and I sink? What if this is not God? And what if, and we start with these what if. So my challenge even to you when those what if comes in, instead of having what if fear, why don't you listen to what if faith? And make a list and a line of these different things, because I have realized that so many times when I listen to fear, fear means false evidence is appearing real. F-E-A-R. And it's going to be one of the biggest hindrance, what if, to being aware of some of those things that becomes the very obstacle. And fear has been one of those giants. And that's what Goliath was to David, that everybody there was kind of crippled by fear. So finding out what some of the root fear is in your life, if that's fear of failure and everything else, and starts to become free from that. What if somebody reads my book and their life is changed? What if there is one marriage that would be transformed? What if there's that one businessman that no longer operates from an orphan heart, that becomes a beloved son that represents the father's business? And I started to make my what if list in regard to one, walking on water. What does that feel like? What does that look like? When this giant coming down, all the other giants that has come down, because I did show up, but I showed up for the right battle. Another lesson I just want to, that I learned here in this, because I use that word as a writer, I use it in every area of life, some of these principles that came. Don't use anybody else's armor. That's a story there with David. And there's a lot of salts. I have been to a lot of writing workshops and I've been in a lot of settings. I have a couple of my friends, I mean, they are phenomenal writers. A couple of them that I met that has sold millions of books. And the tendency for me is, let me find out what armor you have and then to use their armor, but it doesn't fit me very well. So I want to bless everyone out there. You are unique, and there's a uniqueness with your voice that needs to be heard. But I bless you to be you. Learn from everybody else. And that's what I'm sitting in here. If that's Brian Simmons and all the years I've been around him, there's so many things I can learn. So everyone has a special sauce. And I take the spices of that and bring that into my special sauce, that recognize who you are, recognize your voice, be an original, don't be a copy. Copies are very cheap. So I just wanted you to know that. And when there's something valuable in you, they don't copy Walmart purses, but they do copy Louis Vuitton. So depending on also on the value of what you are carrying has to do with what people wants to copy. And I'm just telling you, be you, be full of you, be an original, stay within your lane, use your own armor, what God has given you. And I'm just being real and authentic with you in this, but there's many giftings I do not have. Like we heard about grandma, and I'm not very good with grandma. I don't even speak good, as I say, I don't even speak with good grandma. I got some good education and everything else, but English is my second language. What I have just is I broaden people that are very gifted in areas that is not my primary gifting. And so for me, as an example, it could be editing, or there could be certain things that it's not my primary gifting. When I don't know what to do, I just know where to go to help to find other people. That's their primary gifting. And I bring that in. So it's not a single thing that here's just what I need to do. It's what we get to do. So everything I'm thinking about is as a family. It's a corporate thing. Who is it that I know that are gifted in an area that I am not as gifted? And I can honor those people, bring them into my special sauce and make me greater than I am. But that doesn't mean that I change my armor and become something different than I am. So you will see that my voice will be heard in the different books in different ways that is coming out of me. And hopefully, as I'm saying, as they are hearing that voice, something in people's life, something becomes alive. And I was just thinking about, I give you one practical example that gives you maybe pain purpose that has been very precious for me. My book Called to Reign, right after it came out. My office, I'm in my office right now. We had this gentleman that came, he wanted to see me. And he found out that I lived in Atlanta area. And it was 40 minutes away from him. And I just give you a couple of things that gives pain purpose. because that was one of those I wanted to give up, but it gave pain purpose. But he showed up at the office. He was a U.S. veteran. My staff met with him and he shared his story. He read the book called Terrain. And during this time, he got totally healed from PTSD and he had opiates. The book has nothing to do with that. It is about these 3 cheers, a visualization message. But when he was reading about it, he was also healed from an opiates addiction that he had because of pain of his back. His life was so changed that the wife just noticed the freedom in his life, because free people sets people free. And I'm just saying that also to each one of you, if you're wondering, what am I going to write about? Where do I start? What have you been set free from? Because free people sets people free. So that's one of the good start. I've been set free from the orphan spirit. I've been overcoming some of these giants. I've been in chair 2, but now I'm in chair 1. And I can just put each one of my books together of different areas that I've been set free from. Help when you get on the other side. And there's times you may be not on the other side, but then describe honestly your journey where you are at and invite them on a journey where they are at, and also moving towards freedom. Is God calling you to write a book? There's a 2-part session to write your first book chapter with our team. Visit unlockingyourbook.com for more information.